Sawubona. This is the African Centered Biological Nationalist Program. I'm your host, Bekazitha, and the aim of this public affairs program is to discuss issues confronting Africans across the globe, especially in the United States, with a concentrated focus on clarifying who is Black / how Black comedies promote self-hate and the fallacies, or some fallacies, such as blacks come in all shades, when this is actually not true. And in addition to fallacies, thinking errors. So, how have Black comedies promoted self-hate? Black American comedies and comedy from its heyday has been a minstrel show, from vaudeville performance in blackface by white Jewish people to the present day Blackish. Minstrel shows have always deformed who was Black and what their traits were. In the late 1820s, white male performers portrayed African American characters by applying burnt cork to their faces. These minstrel acts grew in popularity through the 1840s, frequently exposing white audiences in the North to a depiction of Southern Black life. Mark Twain and Abraham Lincoln were known to attend minstrel shows. White and Black performers darkened their faces. Blackface became a staple of vaudeville and of ads for products such as cigarettes and pancakes. Then came the jazz singer, which took blackface to a wider national audience. In addition to Al Jolson, leading Jewish entertainers who also performed in blackface included such prominent names as Eddie Cantor and George Burns, who is towards the left here. Jews then played a disproportionate role in the minstrel industry. White people have had, understandably, an enormous influence on the African American image, for they were the directors, main writers, and more importantly, casting directors for all the popular 1970s, 80s, and even up till this time, Black shows. Of course, people point out Bill Cosby. However, one only has to delve into his creative team to see they were mostly composed of multiracial people. I'm talking about the Cosby Show. The casting directors, the main writers for both of the shows, to spin off A Different World, which is the cast. This is the cast of it. And the Bill Cosby Show itself. And there lies the problem. The gatekeepers are not the stakeholders of defining who is Black. slash African American and have never been African people. The people who are or who have defined who is African American and African in general, due to the fact that American, that is the USA, its television shows are shown around the world. So they influence people and their perception, especially those that live outside of Africa and the United States. These whites and multiracials have been primarily promoting a vomit of a definition, mainly the one-drop rule, a social rule codified into law by white people until it was ruled to be illegal. A social rule not based on science, but to preserve white power, especially during the formal enslavement of African people. A social codified law which considered all non-white people slaves. This is the reference ignorant whites, multiracials, and self-loathing blacks refer to when they point out that Africans come in all shades, which they don't. Now, one of the ways that we can infer that, let's say, this type of complexion is not part of the spectrum, the color spectrum that Black people produce, is to ask the question, who are this, what is this person's parents? Who are his parents, I should say. Now, this is the ex-president of Ghana, who I believe his mother was a white woman. Now, as you can see, he conked it up a little bit here, but his hair, as he got older, he stopped trying to, make it, extra permanent. Maybe he put it, I don't know what he would do to it, but from a distance, you would think he had African textured hair, but you can see, obviously, he doesn't. So one condition he has failed already, but due to the fact that he's a product of a white woman and a Black male, you know from that fact that his skin color must indicate that this is not a color spectrum that is found in the Black race. You can infer that because he is a hybrid. We have a lot of hybrids in the United States. Will Smith is a hybrid. Will Smith is a hybrid. This is why I pointed out these pictures here. The only Black people in this picture are the butler, I don't know his name, and the black female here that they killed off, or they replaced her, I should say. Everyone else is a hybrid in this group. Everyone is a hybrid. You have to ask yourself this question: why are they promoting hybrids as authentic African people in the United States? As I've already pointed out, the vast majority of the casting directors, the vast majority of the producers, main writers of these shows, people that are controlling the educational system, have been white people or multiracial people. Just look at the NAACP. It wasn't a black organization. It was a colored organization. There were white people that created that organization, and they selected W.E.B. Du Bois as the figurehead. This is the same pattern, MO, that we see throughout the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, 20th century, and the 21st century in the United States. But laying down the foundation to understand a couple of things here. And this is why we have to pity. We have to pity the multiracial, because the multiracial that identifies as a black person, because they have been duped to a certain extent. Many of them have been duped. Not all of them. Many of them know the truth. Many of them, it's a money grab. That's why they promote self-hatred and self-hating ideas within the black group, especially via comedy or these comedy programs. Now, Bill Cosby, as I said, he had a tremendous mulatto fetish. How do we know that? All we have to do is look at his shows. A Different World. In this picture, there's actually the black people outnumber the multiracial people. Unusual. I believe this is when the show was at its height, because when they had a white girl in the beginning of the show, and they wrote her out because people weren't they couldn't get down with it. This is during the 80s. they didn't comprehend that. Black college, white woman. They said, yeah, let's scrap that. Let's just make it all black. And I think Lisa Bonet was in the program for a while. They scrapped her out of there because she did some nude scenes. I guess Bill said, if I can't have you, nobody can. I think Bill said, if I can't have you, nobody can. So they scrapped that, and they had a more traditionally the look at most of the black colleges, which were vast majority of the people at the black colleges during the 80s, at least, were African people. So if you drop them in the middle of the Congo or South Africa or Angola or Mali or Tanzania or in southern Kenya or in southern Sudan or Mozambique, the people will run up to them or walk up to them and speak in their native languages. And the only way that the African American could be distinguished between the native African on the continent and the African in America is by their mannerisms and their inability to communicate in the local language. This is common sense. This is common sense. But these comedies have retarded common sense. They have dulled people's cognitive abilities. And people don't understand how they can be fooled so easily. They don't understand how, pictures can warp their perceptions, warp their senses. The stimuli that they receive can be manipulated. So instead of seeing black people, you see people all of the same shade, but there are differences, that's for sure. Felicia Rashad is a multi-generational, multiracial person. She's what we call a brown skin or a dark skin multiracial. Maybe people don't want to use that word. Okay. But she's a non-African person. and Black and African are synonymous. Let's not play word games. Let's not go down this this wormhole that many of you want to create just to get off the subject. So Africans do not come in all shades. African Americans have been taught to be sentimental due to and to practice the fallacy of pity. I've spoken about this practice of pity before, which someone says, well, my grandmother was raped. And you say, well, what, she got raped 248 years ago? What, I mean, I don't get your point. No matter if a woman, and it's ugly, and rape is disgusting, but the offspring, if the woman is a Black woman, an African woman, and she is raped by a white male or a biracial male, that child is not African due to pity. Biologically, it is a hybrid. It's an admixture of both individuals. This is a scientific fact. Since you get 23 chromosomes from your mother, you get 23 chromosomes from your father. And during the process of meiosis, that is specifically recombination, genes are, it's similar to they're switched around. They're exchanged. Some are transferred, some are not. Remember that a gene is a unit of inheritance. This is where mathematics comes into play. So you can understand these concepts. It's a unit of inheritance. And although Black people and humans in general they share genes with many things. They have similar genes with bananas, believe it or not. With, of course, the orangutan, that is humans in general, but anatomically correct humans. Anatomically correct humans, focusing on anatomically correct humans. When we look at the gene frequency, when we look at the genes that are in certain populations, which have built up in populations due to them being isolated, especially anatomically correct humans, that is the African, for 200,000 years, anatomically correct humans, they share a certain group of genes. And white people, Europeans, have a specific frequency of genes that they share, that have built up in these populations. This is why we can say with certainty that if you have certain traits, you are not an African person. And we have arrived at the reasonable understanding that having brown to Black skin and African textured hair makes you an African person. Now, let's focus on light skin. Why is light skin or skin outside of the color spectrum, why is it not an African trait? Well, it's a study that you can look up, loci associated with skin pigmentation identified in African populations. Look at all the authors here. Don't know how many Africans were involved with this. Zion, probably Jew, white Jew, Chinese, But what specifically they found out is that genetic evidence indicates that the light pigmentation variant at SLC24A5 was introduced into East Africa by gene flow from non-Africans. That is a separate population, made it an individual or many, but let's just say maybe a tribe or a group of people. They introduced the light pigmentation variant into the African population. Before that time, it never existed. It never existed for anatomically correct humans in Africa. The mutation, with many, many more mutations, happened outside of Africa, and those people became a subspecies of Africans. We have to talk specifically and scientifically. We cannot speak as if we're rapping and everything that comes to our head we say, or we speak in a sentimental fashion. Thus, this is why, in my opinion, because people cannot accept the fact, or we're not promoting enough the idea that black people have, let's get some black people here, some verifiable black people here. Let's get some verifiable black people. Even Al Jolson knew what a black man looked like, kind of. Except for the lips. He knew he had African textured hair. He knew he had black skin. Let's get some black people here. You're embarrassed by these black people, aren't you? Ain't no light-skinned people here. But you're supposed to redeem the group. You're not supposed to abandon the group. You're supposed to redeem the group. But see, many of you are cowards. So the biological facts are that multiracial people are not black. African people, they are not black African people. And to think otherwise dulls Africans in America's social psychology. So our social psychology is dulled. It is retarded when we believe that multiracial people are black people / African people. Remember, I have to reiterate this constantly. African and black are synonymous. This is why they called yellow people Asian people. Stop playing word games, people, to escape reality. Thus, this is why apprehensive attitudes in the African population in the United States are witnessed. And these attitudes hamper the work ethic. The work ethic needed to build a nation within a nation. Negative thoughts of blackness cut off the African American community's ability to problem solve. And this is a cognitive mental process. Problem solving is a cognitive mental process. And black comedies, like a movie whose character changed clothing mid-scene, reveal continuity errors. Reveal continuity errors. Reveal continuity errors. See, this is what we call amnesia. When you hear an idiot tell you that the people that were brung on slave ships to America, people 100 years from them in the future, even if they're descendants of these people, if they don't resemble the people, they are not the people anymore. They're admixtures, they're hybrids. Accept it. Do not relabel them, do not rename them. Don't name them falsely African people. It shows continuity errors. It shows continuity errors. It shows amnesia. And this speaks to another cognitive mental process called attention. Lacking attention to the continuity errors one is experiencing in one's mind retards other cognitive mental processes such as reasoning, memory, and language. So let's go back to this whole idea. Many of you, that family word, oh my God. See, this is why you have to understand biology. Of course, someone can be related to you. A multiracial person could be related to you if, for example, your father had mated with two different women, and one female is a Black, authentic African person, and the other person is a European. Those offspring are related to you that came from the European, but they're not Black, they're not African. That makes sense, doesn't it? So why are you calling Beyonce a Black woman? Because you're sick. And it speaks to your lack of reasoning. Recall, learning starts in the mind. And if you begin by categorizing objects, things, and people incorrectly, you are sure to analyze things incorrectly. How many Black females here? Just one. Definitely a multiracial. I have to see her hair. And you understand they're all bleached out here. And she's probably wearing a little makeup. This is why her skin, her hair, her face looks a little bit different than her skin. You got to understand, a lot of tricks go on. You know, this, I would think that this is understood. You know, people can understand this. They would understand this. But obviously, I'm speaking to a young group of people who have been indoctrinated into believing the one drop rule. Self-hating people I'm not reaching out to because they're useless. But those of you that haven't studied biology and you just need a little bit more clarification so you could do your own research. So we must address the non-Black people. We must address the influence of non-Black people as Black the way a behaviorist would. That is understanding the connection between behavior and stimuli. This is why I put this picture here. The stimuli is the visual stimuli that you're getting right here. It's manipulated. It's manipulated. So you have to understand visually the stimuli of non-Black leaders representing Black people has had a negative effect on Black determination. Look at Africa. This is the color chart. This is the color chart. Of course, North Africa has been taken over by the Arabs for over a millennium now. That's 1,000 years. But for 250,000 years, starting in East Africa, we came forth from the countries now known as Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. The birthplace of civilization. and we went north, and we went west, and we went south. This is the equator. This is the equator. That means you're going to get 12 hours of sun, 12 hours of no sunlight. As you go further north and south, the time changes depending on the period of the day. I mean, the period of the year. Right now, for example, in Sweden, until the summer solstice occurs, they are getting more and more light. It is, you can see sunlight in Sweden up to 2 a.m. in the morning. I think it's even more than that. It's beautiful there at this point in the year. It's beautiful. But during the wintertime, during the winter solstice, or even getting close to it, they get possibly 4 to 6 hours of sunlight. So I say all that to say large amount of sunlight in this area. Great exposure. Meaning that, and being that this is the birthplace of mankind, of humankind, of African people, you would have to have brown to black skin to survive. We're not jumping to the 20th century. We're talking about our people from time immemorial. If you don't look like them, you can't be African. You're not going to change the definition on me. So visually, the stimuli of non-black leaders representing black people has had a negative effect on black determination. Also, this mental set has shown to be unproductive and caused the racial suicide of blacks / Africans in North and South America. In the United States, the birth rate is down for everybody, but it's not growing exponentially for African Americans. And then you have to add the people that are, they're claiming to be African. You got to add those people as well. Black comedians have given us false prototypes of the black family. This is a mental image or best example of a category in this case, the black family. So they have given us false prototypes of the black family. Now, the reason I bring this up, I want to really focus on why I bring this up. I saw a program today. I was flipping through the channels, and I saw this program with Damon Wayans. The Wayans brothers are the biggest Uncle Toms I've ever seen in my life. They are the biggest Uncle Toms I've ever seen in my life. I believe this guy's named Damon Wayans. They have always been playing promoting multiracials as blacks. But what got me was the extent of this delusion. And then he had, he had his son in the show, Damon Wayans. And Damon Wayans' son looks just like him. But one thing is different. And I saw it in this show. And I never noticed it before because his son is bald. I don't know if he's going bald. Could be because his father has a receding hairline, male pattern baldness. But you receive that gene from your mother. So maybe he doesn't have it. However, his son didn't have African textured hair. And I saw it. And, his son was playing a friend of this young man in the show. And I was saying to myself, wow, look at these, all he has is multiracial black friends. And I said, damn, that guy looks just like David Wayans. And then I said, yeah, doesn't he have a son that's an actor? But I've never seen his hair. I've never seen, and I wonder why. He knows that's on a woman, the Negro, and I use that in a derogatory way. The Negro is fascinated by lanky hair. The Negro is like a woman that doesn't want to do her hair. I don't get it. I don't get it. So black comedies have given us false prototypes of the black family. This girl, the black girl was on the show. They replaced her with a light-skinned girl. And then they made up a story, told her to go with a story that she got accepted to Juilliard or some nonsense like that. And that's why she left the show. BS. Or her mother was religious. BS. They said, we're gonna chop off some money to you, and we're gonna hand you some money, a little extra paycheck here, but we got to get this light-skinned girl on the show. We got to get this those Moesha years are over. We got to get some of these light-skinned girls. We got to get these white people and these black females that are obsessed. Well, I will say some, but way too many that are obsessed with having weaves and having hair that resembles multiracial females and trying to play it off like it's theirs. It's a joke, man. It's a comedy show. It's a bad comedy show. So these shows, once again, dwindle, mislead, and fog our cognition. They dwindle, mislead, and dampen our cognition. That is all the mental activities associated with thinking, knowing, remembering, and communicating. Black comedies have warped concepts. They have warped concepts. A concept is a mental grouping of similar objects, events, ideas, and people, also known as categorizing. Black comedies have caused psychological disorders. What is a psychological disorder? Deviant, distressful, and dysfunctional patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The black personality has been truncated and falsified. Recall, personality is best described as deeply ingrained patterns of behavior and the manner in which individuals think about themselves and the world. So because of the visual stimuli that blacks are receiving, this false visual stimuli is affecting their cognitive abilities. And thus understanding themselves, because their behavior and stimuli are interconnected. We have to understand that behavior and stimuli are interconnected. And this is why you see a lack of determination within the black community. Of course, some, they are motivated to impress white people and to be second-class citizens in the United States proudly. As long as they are the HNIC, they are happy to be second-class citizens within the United States instead of creating a nation within a nation, which Dr. Amos N. Wilson said we needed to do. Scientifically, we can go on and on about, we have different scales. We have the pigmentary phototype, the Fitzpatrick scale that discusses what I was discussing about. You can't be a so-called light-skinned person in Africa from the inception of the human, that is anatomically correct human. It wasn't possible. You would have died off. Of course, you have them in North Africa now. They're under protective. They're wearing sunscreen. They're wearing a lot of clothing, but not in the beginning of the time. You couldn't be. And that's who we represent. That is our gene frequency. So we have to understand these ideas. We have to understand these ideas, and we cannot accept the one-drop rule, which is an appeal to false authority. Using an alleged authority, especially during the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, most of these people were judges, and they weren't even educated. Some of them were not even educated to be judges. They were just the police, some sheriff in the area that everybody respected, and he became a judge. There was no requirement that you had to go to law school. These people were protecting the racial integrity of white people. So great evils grow out of people's compliance with lesser evils. You complied with the evil of this multiracial mulatto, who many of you are still calling black, when he had a white mother. You had a picture of his mother, and you still called him a black man because you were sick. You were sick. And of course, he ushered in other behaviors, anti-African behaviors. And now you guys are stuck on intersectionality. We spoke about ancestry DNA testing and privacy, a consumer guide. You can check it out yourself. It was written by Sheldon Krimsky, a physics professor. That is a rigorous degree, and he's a physics professor. So he received a PhD, and he was studying the mechanics and how accurate were ancestry DNA tests. And what did he find out? Well, he points out Duster, who notes the public needs to understand that those reference populations comprise relatively, and he's talking about the ancestry informative markers, those things that tell you that you're 2% South African and 10% from Burkina Faso. Okay. The public needs to understand that those reference populations comprise relatively small groups of contemporary people. This is like cryptocurrency. Worthless. Those group samples may have migrated over several centuries, and thus those researchers must make many untested assumptions in using these contemporary groups to stand as proxies for populations from centuries ago. Whether putatively representing a continent, a region, or a linguistic, ethnic, or tribal group, given these intractable barriers to even low-level probabilistic reliability, geneticists are on thin ice telling people that they do or don't have ancestors from a particular people. They're using present-day people to determine your ancestry. I don't think I have to really get any deeper than that. White people are calling light skin the SL24A5, or he pointed it out. They have called it the golden gene. This is what happens when people dominate an area. They can manipulate the information so you don't know what it is. The arm of this book's second author, this book is by Futuyama, and he has another author, but the arm of this book's, which I took a picture of, after removal of a basal cell carcinoma Increased risk of skin cancer is a negative side effect of light skin. So this would not have been possible in this region of Africa. Use your common sense. Stop projecting idiocy. So this is a particular instance of something used or analyzed in order to illustrate a thesis. This case study. A case study, Black comedies. A case study is a particular instance of something used or analyzed in order to illustrate a thesis that Black people do not come in all shades. And Black self-hate is embodied by the promotion of the one-drop rule. And Black comedies are used to promote unscientific concepts. Let me see if anyone has anything to say. And I welcome people that disagree with me. I welcome you. I welcome you. We have empowering ADOs. Oh, my goodness. Let me see what some people are saying here. Hold on. Let me see what people are saying here. Hold on for a second. Once again, this is the African-Centered Biological Nationalist Program. I'm your host, Bekazitha. And the aim of this program is to discuss issues confronting Africans across the globe, especially in the United States, with a concentrated focus on clarifying who is Black/African and how Africans must utilize this definition to attain power. Anyone that disagrees with me, you are more than welcome to chime in and give your opinion. Let me read this. Now in the 21st century, Black Americans emphasize diversity within the in-group. Thus, Black comes in all shades. There is the mistaken belief that Black Americans are a mixed group, not distinct. Well, I would say the intelligentsia give it the white intelligentsia actually promotes that idea. Kwandon 7. Salbona MC Cham. Let me see what people are saying here. To multi-generational multiracials that identify as Black, do you see white people walking around in dark chocolate skin? Stay Solid says, I see African-centered biological nationalism saying to keep fighting. But, well, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not a defeatist, and we have to be resilient, Stay Solid. We have to be resilient. It's important that we remain resilient, and that is to bounce back when we experience setbacks. And the race is reborn. Remember when you have children. I'd say the color spectrum for authentic Africans is dark brown to jet black. Anything lighter isn't acceptable. Basically, if you don't look like the Africans who first arrived here, then you're not Black. Exactly. This is 100%. 100%. Let me see if there's anything else here to be said. I want to go through all the comments here. Oh, let me see. Hold on. Let me get my brother here. Jonas. I meant to say dad is white, mom is Black. Let me see what you said here. Okay, Jerry Rawlings' dad is white. His mom is Black. Oh, was it? Okay, I didn't know. I didn't really. We're talking about this multiracial person right here. And I think my argument is that given he is a product of a multiracial relationship, that should indicate that this skin color is non-African. It's a skin color that is not produced by African people. It's not within our gene frequency. And I've already talked about the whole idea that the light-skinned gene came forth from Western Asia and entered into East Africa. This is a scientific fact. Let me see some other. And like I said, if anyone disagrees with me, anyone that wants to state something differently, you are more than welcome to join the chat real quick. Let me see. Let me get some people in here. Hold on. All right. I already pointed that out. Why don't you call out the weak African men who sold us to the white man? What you think was going to happen? It's always weak black men who drop the ball. Okay, you said it. You have said it. All right, so I don't see anyone that's going to call in to disagree. They usually, because they know they can't get away with babbling just, crazy stuff, because we're going to go through this methodically, and they know they just can't just say things off the wall. And I will respect people that call in, because I want to debate your ideas. I don't want to diminish you. I want to debate your ideas and how you have arrived at this at these conclusions. All right, let me wind down the program by saying Sawubona to everyone. MC Cham, Sharif Jones, Jonas Blaine, Black Authenticity, Nappy Yankee, and many others. So Stanley, since you have a problem with what I'm saying, why don't you articulate your feelings on the program? Stanley Igwe. Stanley Igwe, I'm calling you out. Like I said, I will be respectful. You don't agree with what I'm saying? Stanley Igwe, you are more than welcome to express your thoughts and your rationale, or better yet, your reasoning. I don't think you're going to take up. You're up to the challenge, to be quite honest with you. All right. So once again, this is the African-centered biological nationalist program. I'm your host, Becca Zitha. I've laid down some solid facts, once again, in regards to scientific research, but more importantly, how cognitively this negative stimuli is affecting our self-determination as a group. Blackish, I said, it wasn't really this show. It was this show with Damon Wayans that I was like, it was so many ugly stereotypes and the worship of, multiracial traits and white traits, and how they replaced the poor girl here with the black girl with the multiracial girl. And then his son was on the show, and I saw, usually I see Damian Wayans' son, talking about him. No, this is his, son on this TV show. But his son in real life that he had with a multiracial female, he never shows, he cuts off his hair. So I never noticed that he had hair like this female. But see, the Wayans are like that. They have they have been co-opted by white people and multiracial people. And they have retarded our self-determination to keep our racial group intact. And that's important to understand. Now, I already said about how stimuli, remember stimuli, psychology. I'm discussing a lot of psychology and biology in this. But psychologically, the stimuli negatively affects us. And here's a study that states, to all you people that calling yourselves Igbo and the light-skinned Igbo are actually African people. No, 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 no. That's not what the facts say. It says genetic evidence indicates that the light pigmentation variant at SLC24A5, that's a loci. That's a loci. That's a gene in a certain area on a chromosome, was introduced into East Africa by gene flow from non-Africans. That's a fact. That's a fact. So no amount of self-hatred or emotionalism that many of you are, you're masters of emotionalism instead of actual facts and science. No amount of that is going to change the fact that people that are multiracial, that happen to be born in Africa. There's a soccer player right now. He was I just read an article. He told, what did he say? He told a white woman that he would choke her. He's a soccer player from he was born in Nigeria. Let me see. Okay, so what is the ADOS end game? What are they trying to accomplish? Well, I don't know what they're trying to accomplish, to be quite frank. ACBN, please call into Uncle Tom's show and show that animal some real facts. All right, spread the video, people. Once again, this is the African-Centered Biological Nationalist Program. I'm your host, Becca Zitha. And the aim of this program is to discuss issues. Let me see. I'm not even light-skinned, and I have a medium complexion, black authenticity, MC Cham. I'm almost 40 years old, and people don't ask me if I'm biracial. Do you know why? Because I'm a black person. All right. I mean, a photo can be a photo, especially a photo in which people are filtering. There's too much. There's not enough natural light, and they're using a flash. So I don't go crazy on that, because I just showed you a photo similar to this right here, in which it looks like two different groups of people, and I'm talking about these two photos, right? And obviously in natural light, you know, when you look at Theo looks like he's, you know, he looks 2 shades darker. So that could be a photography problem. You don't know how to utilize the correct flash or aperture on your photo. But a lot of black people, they tend to you know, I'm not going to, but if that is your natural color, you are outside the color spectrum, and that is for sure. All right, so I've invited people that disagree with me. There seems to be none, and I've established the reason why many of these comedic programs, which are very popular across the board in the United States and across the globe, how they negatively affect Black self-determination. All right. So once again, this is the African-Centered Biological Nationalist Program. I'm your host, Becca Zitha. And you have a great day. Salagashe, and be well.